Hey everyone, it's Chuck Hogan with Your Best Life, and welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download both the Zingo TV app on the respective app stores on iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment, please. The app is completely free. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, and even Roku and Roku sticks, and of course on all smart TVs 2016 and forward. So, hey, I got to tell you, we're so grateful to have you all here with us today. And I have the most beautiful blessing in my life, a dear friend, someone who I've known for, oh my gosh, it's well over a decade now. H.E.R. Carlson is not only an advocate, I will say, for world change and helping people grow further, farther, faster. But she is a coach, a strategist, someone that can help you understand more of the modalities of who you are, where you're living, and why you're living that way. And beyond that, she is extremely skilled in a technology called human design. And this is something that we're going to go deeper into today, because it is, she gave me the blessing of a wonderful interaction. And it was so enlightening to find out that you get to know more about you. And although this may sound woo-woo to some of you, believe me when I tell you it's rooted in science. This is not something that's just, out in the fifth dimension, so to speak. So without further ado, can you give it up for the one and only H.E.R. Carlson?
Oh, thank you so much, Chuck. I'm so energized to be here. So excited to talk with you and dive deeper into all the magic that we get to explore and just being human.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, isn't that the condition? I would say, isn't that the blessing that we get to have, is that we're all human?
Yes.
In this world where there seems to be a lot of discord around ethnicities and around what are your rights? And I go, well, as a human being, I believe that there's some inalienable rights. One, you get to breathe.
Yeah.
Two, you get to live. Three, you get to thrive if you choose that as your path. And for those that might be, I'll say, teetering or tithering on the edge, you can survive if that's what you choose. But why would you want to live there? This show is called Your Best Life for a reason. And that is truly because we believe, and this is something I know you are very committed to in your life, is living at a remarkable level, living at a level of experience and opportunity. And I'm just going to go there real quickly. It doesn't mean that it's not without pain. It doesn't mean that there's not a level of trading of expectations in order to achieve and go through the lessons that we need to have in order to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love what you're saying there, because too, I truly believe that we're put on this planet for a reason.
Yes.
And we all have differences for a reason. We're not all meant to be the same. We're all meant to have these differences because it's through those differences that actually give us the opportunity to grow and come together and connect and actually have more energy. That's actually how I got into human design, really. This is, I know you and I are in this personal development space, and we believe that you get to choose your best life based on the choices and the belief systems and the patterns that you put out day and day. And it's really interesting because when I first learned about human design, I've been in the personal development space for many, many years. I think, and this is one of the things I think is really funny. I believe that everybody is in the personal development space.
Yes.
Like, even if they're not conscious of it, because we all go through life, right? Life happens. We go through the ebbs and flows and the ups and downs and everything. And I think once you start to see and you have awareness of how your energy is showing up, the stuff that maybe you're not so familiar with, but also the things that you are familiar with. Once you start to see that and you own it, you take responsibility for the good, the great, and maybe the ugly or the not so great that maybe you don't love.
Listen, the lessons are the most valuable asset that are underrated. And it's this so pain and pleasure ideology of we'll do more to avoid the pain than we'll do to give ourselves pleasure. I had someone early this morning, we were on a call, and she was like, okay, I just don't want to screw it up. I just don't want to screw it up. I just fell in love again with my high school sweetheart from 40 years ago, and I don't want to screw it up. And I said, then don't. She goes, well, spoken just like a man. And I was like, well, okay. And I said, there's a different way to look at it. If you're so concerned about not screwing up, you're going to screw up.
Yeah.
Why? Because where focus goes, energy flows. That's a universal causality. That's not something that I just made up. That's not something that Chuck Hogan manifested. And I said, so don't. She goes, okay, smarty, how do I do that? And I said, just be happy and enjoy the moment.
Mm. Isn't it amazing what we can find in the presence when we just
That's the
slow,
beauty.
just slow down enough to be like, okay, I'm actually experiencing the now. It's amazing what fears and everything that just goes away when we just allow ourselves to be present. But it does take training, because we live in this conditional world where we've been told what to do, how to do it, sit down, go through school. This is what you need to do and learn all these different lessons. And then at the same time, it's like, if you feel, there's a lot of times people feel this resistance to it because it's not natural for them, right? But everything that we desire is on the other side of our comfort zone. So if we just lean in and learn to be a little bit more curious, right? And literally face these things with curiosity, I feel like you can move through anything in your life.
I couldn't agree more, my friend. And being inquisitive is a beautiful thing. I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing more beautiful than a 3-year-old. Everything's why.
A three-nager? You mean a three-nager?
That's it. I mean, it's like, wow, sage wisdom out of someone who's occupied this planet for just a little over 1,000 days. And you're like going, huh.
Right? Because they haven't had that conditioning yet.
And they know how they feel and they honor it. And this is where we get to find some freedom as well when we step away from judgment and we choose to live in harmony.
Yeah.
I'm over the ideology of trying to live a balance. I go, it doesn't exist. This, when we look at a yin yang ideology and they go, yes, they're equals. And I said, not even close. Not even close. I said, if you look at a yin yang symbol, it's in motion and it's an evolution and it has synergy and gravity because it is in motion. So it creates its own sphere of energy and the level that it resonates at. Well, you can call it attraction strategy. You can call that your values. You can call that whatever you like. It said, but inside each side there's a pearl of the opposite color. And there's a reason for that. And it stands for the polarity that actually fuels each and every one of us. It's never all about all good. And it's never, you have to have a little evil. And I was like, well, you don't have to have an evil in you. But maybe you'll look at it a different way. Go, maybe it's having doubt on occasion or not always feeling at 100%. Yeah. Well, your body is always seeking that equilibrium. It's always seeking that harmony. That's why you go, oh, I think I'm hungry. And I go, why? Because I have this feeling that I'm not satiated right now and I could use some fuel, nutrition, input, energy. And I go, oh, which one is it? They go, all? Oh, okay, cool. Body, mind, and spirit, right?
Yeah.
So, Katie, when you and I met in a very, I'll say, charged environment, a large environment, and it was interesting because I always admired your spirit and energy and how there's this gregarious just love of life. And thank you. And it's interesting because when you meet people like this, I believe like attracts like. I'm very modeled that way, the same way. Can't help it. Sorry, what you see is what you get. And
yeah.
Me too. That's it. And I go, okay. And they go, but that doesn't mean that you're always up all the time.
No.
And how do you find for you, and especially when you understand this, that as a human, we do have this design. And this design is made up of different modalities of self. It's made up of different meta programs. It's made up of different nuances of levels of escalation of energy as to where that resonates. And at different times, reasons and seasons exist. And I can only imagine, like with human design, along with astrology as an example, it's like, oh, now this gets uber powerful.
Yeah.
But your date of manufacture makes a difference.
It does. And, it's interesting because, again, we're all souls at the end of the day, right? In this human physical body. And our souls are put on this earth for a reason. Our souls chose our body. So regardless of what you look like physically or what you wish you looked like, you're that way for a reason.
Yes.
And it's through that life. It's through the actual practice of going through life and experiencing life and living life that we get to manifest and incarnate what our souls are desiring to fulfill in this lifetime. I believe that with every ounce of my being. And I believe that, when you're talking about balance, I think it's so interesting because there is the duality of, the masculine and the feminine and, the yin to the yang and all of that. But what is really powerful, and I think what most people sometimes don't understand, is that every next level of your evolution is going to call a different version of you, which is going to call so it's going to call a different version of you to grow, right? To be a stronger leader of yourself, not just of others, but of yourself. How are you leading yourself? How are you choosing to lead yourself and move through these different things? And I think it's truly through the duality of holding both the lower vibration, like being able to recognize the lower vibrational energies and having that recognition of that, actually in the process of recognizing that, becoming conscious of it, you actually raise your overall vibration. That is the beauty of human design. So when I found human design, and for those of you guys that are not familiar with human design and what this is, I'd love to give a little bit of an explanation of it. So human design was a system that was developed actually not that long ago. It was in 1987. It was downloaded by an individual named H.E.R. He was in Spain, and he had these kind of almost like this eight crazy nights where he downloaded the system, and it incorporated ancient wisdom, the I Ching, the Kabbalah, the chakra system, and Western astrology, and gives you this incredible output of understanding how your energy is best meant to show up in this world. Also, where you're going to experience maybe some blocks, where maybe some of the shadows, some of the life lessons are going to be, then also gives you a really powerful indicator of how to move through them. And that's one of the things that I love working with people to do is how to leverage their own uniqueness, right? To live their life to the fullest, to live their best life. And what does that look like? That doesn't mean necessarily that you're not going to experience, some hardship or some things that are going to have you contemplate at a higher level, but it's through that actual art of contemplating and going through and recognizing those shadows or what's blocking you. Because a lot of times we're not conscious to it, right? Like we're not necessarily conscious to some of the energies that are holding us back from living in our truth. And I believe, and the highest vibrational frequency is that of truth, no matter what. And that's the truth of maybe something that you don't love about yourself, or that you've learned about yourself, or that awareness, but just drawing that awareness in and being truthful to yourself unlocks energy and activates codes in your physical body that will raise your overall vibration. If you raise your overall vibration, what's going to happen? You're going to start attracting new people, new experiences in your life that's going to bring you to a higher vibrational energy. And when you do that, your soul starts to get happy, right? Your physical body starts to feel pretty happy. You start to live in an energetic alignment, and then you start manifesting things out of thin air. And you're like, how is this happening? And I've always said this. I'm like, I'm half woo, half do, right? Because there is this spiritual realm, right, of belief, and how do we reconcile in our own mind the things that we can't explain?
Right.
Faith, belief, like having a belief in a bigger picture, having a belief in a bigger presence within ourselves, right? God, spirit, universal intelligence, whatever that is for you. There is something bigger out there that is always yearning, always pulling us forward, even in the dark times. And so one of the things that activated me within human design is that it gives you a framework of understanding your differences, of how unique you are, based truly on the time and place that you were born. So, people have heard, I'm sure people are familiar with astrology, and people have probably heard of birth charts, and they're like, oh, I'm a Libra, I'm an Aries, I'm a Gemini, I'm a Virgo, whatever it is. That's a very small fraction of what human design does. What human design incorporates, at least what I work with my clients on and my teams, is understanding how your unique energy plays into the bigger picture and how you can fuel yourself and create that self-guided leadership, right? That's not necessarily, dependent on external validation, right? We all need a little validation here and there from other things. That's how we experience, right? I believe that we learn through validation and contrast, right? So it's through those opportunities that we get to grow through that we start to see, oh, maybe I really like this or maybe I really don't. And as you move through life and you start to see where maybe things are not necessarily going your way, this is one of the reasons why I work with my clients in human design. I can literally go through, and I know I did this with your chart, and I'm happy to go back through your chart if you want to, like, we can kind of talk through some things, because I know last time when we spoke about it, there were some like, you were kind of like, oh my gosh, how do I know this? And there are strangers. I will literally look at someone's chart that's a complete stranger, and I'm able to say, I'm able to see these different things in them.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I think is so beautiful at the very ground level, when you look at human design and like what human design does, there's 5 energetic types. Okay. So, and please feel free to interrupt me and ask questions here, because like I get going on this rabbit hole very, very easily. So there's 5 energetic types. The first type is the generator. I'm a generator. It makes up roughly, generators and manifesting generators make up about 65 to 70% of the population. So those are 2 different types composed in one, but 65 to 70% of the population. Generators and manifesting generators to a certain extent, but you'll see what I mean when I say this. Generators have really big auras. We have really big energy. People are naturally drawn into our energy because it's this life force energy. When we're doing things, then we are lit up by life. We have an incredible overall vibration of energy. Like, we have so much energy, and it's a high vibrating energy. So naturally, a lot of people are going to be drawn to that. The big thing for generators, though, they're meant to respond to the energy of like what's coming in their environment. They're not meant to initiate or inform. They're truly here to respond. So what this means is not necessarily sitting back and not doing anything, but allowing yourself to be lit up by what you're doing. This is one of the things that I find in so many people when they're working in their 9-to-5s and they're miserable. They're absolutely miserable. And if you're a generator and you're in your 9-to-5 and you're miserable, you're literally killing your life force energy.
Yep.
So I always tell my generators, I'm like, you got to lean into satisfaction. And each of the types have different of what we call signature. And the generator's signature is satisfaction. It's like, how do you feel satisfied? What makes you feel satisfied? How can you lean into satisfaction? It can be as small as like going outside for a walk and hugging a tree, or drinking some water, changing your state, jumping on your rebounder. Like, one of the smallest things that brings me satisfaction. I don't drink coffee. Okay. I don't do coffee. I have no judgment for people that do drink coffee. However, I love a latte with cinnamon on top, an almond milk latte with cinnamon on top that is made for me. Not that I have to make it, but if someone makes me one, and the satisfaction that leans into. So if I'm having a day where I'm like, and I feel really frustrated, so that's the key for a generator when they know that their energy is out of alignment. I'm like, okay, what can I do to lean into satisfaction? I'll play some music, I'll change my state, do that sort of thing. So generators have really big auras, and we're meant to respond to the energy that's of our environment. The next type is the manifestors. And this is what you are, Chuck. So manifestors are literally like almost the polar opposite of a generator, and they complement each other very well. The manifestors have energy that's almost like a repelling aura. It's like Moses in the Red Sea. They're the leaders of the universe. They have this ability to see things and cut through the BS that is not necessarily needed, right? It's like they have this ability to really streamline information. They have really, really good boundaries when they're in their energetic alignment. Boundaries are a really big thing for manifestors. And one of the beautiful gifts is the manifestors are only make up about 9 to 10% of the population. So you're already a unicorn, Chuck. You're already a unicorn. But the manifestors are truly here to initiate and inform. They're meant to use their voice. They're meant to share their experience. They're meant to share their intuitiveness, their downloads. If a manifestor doesn't share through their voice, like doesn't get their words out, and that could be through a podcast, that could be through a TV show, it could be through a book, through, posting on social media, whatever it is, if they don't get their words out, their energy will get blocked up. And as soon as their energy gets blocked and their energy goes out of alignment, they experience an anger. It doesn't mean they don't get frustrated or bitter or disappointed. It's just kind of that natural tendency to do that. The gift of the manifestors is being able to push the boundaries of what's possible. Manifestors are truly fire starters of the universe. They're here to push the boundaries and make things possible. They're here to create. They're not necessarily here to execute. which is really interesting. Manifestors are here to initiate, inform, and not necessarily execute on these tasks. When they have ideas or inspirations, or they're ready to like go on an idea, it's not necessarily up to them to execute. They need to go find generators to execute their idea. It's really a thing. So when a manifestor's energy is in alignment, they have this feeling of inner peace. So this is what we call a signature. So I mentioned the generator's signature is satisfaction. The manifestor's signature is peace. So when a manifestor is experiencing peace, you will manifest literally from the drop of a hat, and you have this ability to attract what's meant for you and repel what's not, right? And like literally repel that energy of like what's not meant for you, which is a really beautiful gift, especially when you're around generators, because generators like just take in everything. The next type is the bridge between the manifestor and the generator. And that's the manifesting generator. And that's why I say that the generator and the manifesting generator make up about 70% of the population. The manifesting generator is the bridge between the two. And the manifesting generator is here to really collapse time between the generator and the manifestor. It's to collapse time, but it leans into the signature of satisfaction and peace, as well as when their energy is out of alignment, they could be frustrated or angry. So there's always, the flip side, both sides of the coin. The fourth type of human design type that we have out there is the projector. Now, projectors, their energy is very much in front of the body. Like it's very much in front of the body, and it's very pronounced. And a lot of times when projectors are speaking, they a lot of times if it doesn't land, they get really bitter. And projectors are here to wait for the invitation. They're not they're not here to respond. They're here to wait for the invitation. So what this means is like, if I actually have a business partner that I'm working with on a couple programs, and she's a projector. And so I invite her in to speak on certain things and certain topics, because when she does it without an invitation, it doesn't land. Oh. And it's a really powerful thing. And it's really interesting because projectors have this ability to see above the fray. They can see the bigger picture. They can see the bigger systems that not everybody else can see. And when the projector's energy is in alignment, they experience this feeling of success. That's their signature. Their signature is all about success. When their energy is out of alignment, they get really bitter. And so I always tell, anytime, even if you're feeling frustrated or you're angry or whatever, your energy is out of alignment. No, it doesn't matter what type you are. Just lean into whatever your signature is. Satisfaction, peace, success, or you can be a manifesting generator and it's satisfaction and peace. The last type is a very small percentage of the population, less than 1%. So reflectors. Reflectors will literally reflect the energy of the universe. They are literally here to reflect their environment. They have this ability to have a really good understanding of the health of the community, and they literally reflect back to others what they're not necessarily seeing. So they are great coaches, great guides. And they're here, they are literally meant to make decisions in a 28-day cycle. So they leverage the moon cycle, which is really wild. And when their energy is in alignment, they experience surprise. When their energy is out of alignment, disappointment. And one of the biggest gifts that I have found, especially for someone that, feels that internal urge, like they feel that inner spark that's like, I want to do something more. I want to create a bigger impact. I want to have a bigger impact. I want to be able to share my message, my teachings, my learnings with the world. Understanding your human design, literally, like it's like you're speaking to my soul. You're saying things that I didn't know I needed to hear. Or I didn't know that I didn't know how to articulate, but I see that sense. I have that validation within myself that gives me that energy to move forward and really lead myself into creating the life that we choose, and by design, because like at the end of the day, every moment we have a choice. Yes. On how we're choosing to show up. You can choose to react. You can choose to take a breath. You can choose to have a sip of water, right? And it's through that understanding and that consciousness of saying, okay, how do I want to show up right now? What is this? How best can I show up for myself? And the more that we show up for ourselves and we are honest with ourselves in that truth, that's the highest vibrational frequency.
That's so important to understand. And I hope everyone who's listening to this rewards themselves with this gift, that your authentic truth is being honest with self. And that there's another premise to this as well, and that is forgiveness of self leads to ultimate freedom.
Yeah.
Because you're not suppressing any energy at that point. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I have a belief, and my belief is a very simple one. You are how you feel.
Yeah.
And you get to decide. It's my weekends are one of those, I'll say, times that are full because it seems like everyone is having an issue after a Friday night date, or Saturday night soiree. And it's like, and then I get the call on Sunday and I going, you got a minute? It's like going, sure. And to that end, to your point, Katie, understanding your tendencies is great to understand because there is this kind of pre-manufactured wiring that comes, if you want to call it through the cosmos or through the greater source energy that we all have access to. And I believe I said this earlier in the week, and I'm going to rephrase it again. There are so many people who are starving of energetic thirst, and yet they're swimming in a sea of energy. And it's like, how can that be? Why is that manifesting itself, and why is it showing up that way? And I'd love to get your take on. Yes, thank you. So
Yeah. I think it's because our brain, right, and our mind is always trying to keep us safe.
yes,
Right, is always wired to keep us safe, and is trying to keep us in a place, in a space where we're grounded, we're safe, like, and that doesn't matter what the situation or experiences that we're in, right? And our mind, unfortunately, is so preconditioned and is so programmed to live out based on how we've lived our life up to that point.
sure,
And so because of that, we have these programs, these programs that are constantly playing. Oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, money doesn't grow on trees. All these different things that we've been hearing all throughout our time and our years. And until and a lot of times, and I know for me, this was especially true, is that it took a really, really low point in my life for me to wake up.
sure,
For me to wake up and be like, you know what? I'm like, this is not like, if I continue down this path, this is not going to go well, right? This is not going to be who I desire to be. We
sure.
all have the urge to be more, right?
Oh,
God, universe, infinite intelligence gives us desires in our heart for a reason. Those desires are meant to bring manifest. We are meant to bring those desires manifest. And it's when
absolutely.
we become conscious to it. Yeah, go ahead.
No, and there's a difference between manifesting and hopium.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%.
The concept of I hope that things are going to be better. I'm like going, okay, manifesting requires a couple of things. One, motive. Like, how do you need to feel? Because at the end of the day, most people are trying to satiate or satisfy a feeling of being enough or not being enough. And I go, okay, then what does that mean for you? Because people use very conflated terms like, oh, if I have adulation, if I have this euphoric expectation of romantic interaction. I was like, damn, okay. And once you have that, how will you feel? And they go, happy. And I go, oh, so when at our core we're all three, and when you're three, there's pretty much three responses: happy, sad, or okay.
Yeah.
And I go, wow. So procrastination, sad. Frustration, sad. Go, can frustration be happy? They go, I guess if there's anticipation. I go, oh, so what's the shift? And they go, well, if I focus on this, I said, oh, but where's the disconnect? And this is something that became very apparent to me in a conversation a couple years ago. And that is, your mindset is based on your heart set.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I
And
love
people,
that.
where did you get that? And I said, well, I've really extrapolated that all human behavior, all needs, all conditions, all wants, all desires come from a deep-seated feeling of one of several things. One, acceptance. Two, that you're appreciated and valued. And three, the last one is gratitude. And so anytime we're in any of those, what you'll find is that you're living in the present.
Yeah. That's so true.
And that is the gift. That
Mhm.
present is the gift. That the pain of yesterday, the discomfort or the feeling of being marginalized or minimalized, I said, that's all future because it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
So, but it doesn't mean that your perception isn't your reality. So if you feel inept and that's your focus because you don't feel you have enough skill or life experience, and I go, are you breathing? Then you're skilled. I'm like, what? I said, that's unconscious competence at its finest. Your heart beats without you thinking about it. Your hair grows. Your nails, hopefully they grow as well. And so, and for some people, hair, that's an option. Their hair's not always growing, but, follically challenged is a thing. And so, and they wear it with pride. They're like going, hey, I save a lot of money on haircuts. And so the beauty of this is that it allows us all to have these amazing options.
Mhm.
And so the one thing that hit me like a ton of bricks is that your mindset's based on your heart set. And fulfillment comes from recognizing that there are possibilities all around you.
Yeah. I love this. And I love what you're saying around, kind of like if you break down your emotions, it's like you're either sad, okay, or you're great, or you're happy. It doesn't, and I think it's when we compound and we get the complex emotions all putting together, and then they compound. And then once they start compounding is when we start spiraling,
It,
right?
it is because listen, when you're happy, then you're like, life is great. When you're sad, then it's like life kind of sucks. And when you're okay, and I said, this is the one where it really is detrimental. I said, you're living in comfort. And
Mhm.
the challenge with this is there's no growth,
Yeah.
zero. In fact, it's a place of stasis where people find survival.
Yeah. And then sometimes I feel like it can also be they get numb. And I think that's one of the scariest places.
It's again, we get to a point where they don't even want to have exposure, and we know that complexity kills execution. You want to kill your dreams, make it complex. So to your point, when we start having more complex emotions and they start become compounded and conflated, I go, oh my gosh. It's like,
Yeah.
where are you at now? It's like, well, you're not living in your body.
No.
And yet what will give you the signals is your body: perspiration, heat, heart palpitations, shallow breathing, nervousness, energy drop, frequency drop. And I go, huh. And then I had someone ask me the other day, Katie, they were like, when does your frequency drop the lowest but you still have the most unity? I said, when you're asleep or in
Mm,
meditation.
mm.
Said, because your body is organically cleansing unconsciously.
Yeah, the amount of work like what's actually being done while we sleep is so fascinating. Is so fascinating, and allowing ourselves to be in that state of rest is so powerful. That's how we recharge the battery, and it's such a powerful, like I wear an aura ring
Mm-hmm.
for this, and because I do track my sleep, because here's the thing, you guys, energy is everything.
Yes.
And being energy rich, and there's a lot of different ways of being energy rich, and there's a lot of different ways, things that you can tap into in the physical realm. And that means, changing your state, drinking water, right? Finding gratitude in the small little things, but also in the sense of like really getting in tune with what's going on in your physical body, right? Like getting in tune, what is actually happening in your physical body, and are you getting enough sleep, right? Are you experiencing joy? Like it's funny because I like to test a lot of different theories. So people always ask me like, how do you have so much energy? Like, where does your energy come from? You have so much energy. And it is true. I do have a lot of energy. And if you look at my human design, I have a lot of sacral energy. I have a lot of root energy. I'm very excited when I'm lit up by life.
Yeah.
So
You and I are wired very similarly that way.
very, very similar. And that's why, like, in the environments in which that we met, there was this, like, we could go for hours and hours and hours. And it's like, are we sleeping? Are we eating? And we'd have to really be conscious of checking in with that. right? Like being really mindful, like, okay, you know what? I need to eat. I need to drink some water. Have I had water in the last 30 minutes? Probably not. Like, well, it might be time to chug some water. Like being really mindful of that. But being lit up by what we're doing also creates a life force energy, that it creates a ripple effect. I mean, it truly does. And it brings other opportunities and things to us. And I think when people are stagnant and when they've, a lot of times it's because our mind has gotten in the way. I love that heart set mindset. And one of the things someone told me a long time ago, and I wish I could remember who it was who told me this, but they were talking about, instead of mindset, I want to think about my mind expanding, right?
Yes.
Of like what's possible, instead of like being set in something. Because sometimes, a lot of times when we have these conditioned, wires in this wiring, sometimes we'll find ourselves stuck in that particular mindset, if you will. But it also, if you look at your mindset, if you have a higher standard, right, of how you show up, then you're not going to fall below it. I think that's I love when, Tony Robbins talks about this when he talks about his teachings in terms of, expectations and standards. Like, they're very different. And I think a lot of times we look at people and it's like, I want you, we have these expectations of, being a certain way, right? And you not meeting these expectations. And it's like, well, people are going to try to rise to meet your expectations, but no one's going to fall below your standard. And that comes with boundaries, having boundaries within yourself. No one's going to honor the boundary that you don't enforce.
No, absolutely. And you're going to get what you're willing to tolerate.
100%.
I love what you said. It was interesting. I had someone explain this to me a couple of years ago, and they said it's your mindset because you're the one that gets to set your mind. And when you use your heart set as your barometer, then what you find is that it is about creating standards that you elevate to. And if you even come in proximity to those standards, the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the amount of uncertainty that you can comfortably live with, but also to the premise of that you're going to get what you're willing to tolerate. And this is where people will lower their standards, or they'll allow someone else's whose frequency, out of shame, out of empathy, out of sympathy. And I go, okay, but you're going to get, this is not a yes and, it's a but you are going to get what you're willing to tolerate. Yeah. And when people fall into three categories, which has become very interesting to me, and I used to question this a lot and I don't anymore. When it was first proffered to me about 15 years ago, I was like, and someone said, well, there's givers, takers, and matchers. And I'm like, huh. And then I started watching very, very covertly patterns. And I was like, I'll be damned. They're a conditional taker. Oh.
Interesting.
They're an obligated taker. Oh. They take as consumption as their thing. And I go, let's watch and see when they give. And it's like, they give 10% to getting 90% the ability of taking. And so I was like, wow, horse trading at its finest.
Yeah.
And someone said, well, give me an example of matchers. And I said, an agreement frame in relationship, 100 and 100. My wife and I are 100, 100. Yeah. It's neither one of us is holding back. Neither one of us is, playing a game, toying with one another. It doesn't mean we're not playful. It just means that the core expectation of who we are, and after 35 years of communing and being together, it's a blessing. I mean, I'm overjoyed by the fact that this woman still allows me to be her husband. And I respect the fact that it's my privilege every day to show her that I deserve her love. And that for me has become such a driving force of setting an example of what masculinity is to our kids and what femininity is in my wife. And someone asked me the other day, Katie, they're like, "What? Okay, you need to get together with like guys like Steve and others and write a book about modern masculinity."
Oh, that would be amazing. You guys should.
I need to speak to your man and talk to him about this. And because these things are what shift the narrative, because where we're living now in the consciousness, we did not, 25 years ago, we didn't have this level of exposure that we have now.
Yeah.
And it's very different now. you know, it's, and I'm sure for femininity it is as well. It's like, you're a beautiful feminine soul. That's why I look at you, I look at my wife Julie and others, and I go, wow, feminine. And I go, it doesn't mean that you're not strong. It doesn't mean that you don't have testosterone. You do. We all have it. I have progesterone and estrogen as well too. The difference is where do we live, how do we express them, and how do we refuel them?
Yeah. And I think it's very interesting that you say that, because I love talking about, and I love working with the masculine and feminine. I've done a lot of work in understanding that and the relationships. And yeah, I am every day, I am so grateful to Steve. We actually do a thing, and I love doing this. And any couple out there that is, or if you're dating someone, or if you've been in a long relationship, one of the things that we've done, and it's been incredibly beautiful, is we do relationship check-ins every single week, every Sunday. He left this morning, so we actually did it yesterday, because we've not missed. And I mean, to the point, we were both doing an event, working an event back in January, which you are very well aware of those hours. We stayed up on the very last night till like 4 a.m. because we hadn't done our relationship check-in. But we had the standard of like, we're not going to sacrifice on this. And we literally, the relationship check-in is about how can we, what are the, like, and it usually ends up more than 3, but it's like 3 things that you really loved and appreciated about your partner. I literally, Chuck, no kidding, on my phone, I have my relationship check-in, and I think it's like, I don't know how many weeks at this point it's been, probably like 35 weeks from this past year, of the things that I love and appreciate and adore about him. And what most women don't, and this is, I'm speaking to a lot of the women out here right now, I think, and especially this day and age, and I can speak from this experience because I've lived it. In society today, there is this like female empowered movement that's going on. And I think it's beautiful to a certain degree, but I think there needs to be a bigger context around it. And I think that there's things that are missing from this feminine empowerment. And what I'm saying may like ruffle some feathers to people, but that's okay. My hallucination is that we've grown up in a place, and at least for me, I've grown up in a place where it was like, be strong, be independent. Like, you don't need a man, you don't need this, you don't need that. Well, we've created an environment where we emasculate men. We think it's funny. Hollywood glamorizes the fact that we emasculate men. So why? I mean, if we're brought up in this kind of culture where you need to be independent, you don't need a man, like, you know, there is like the family unit, I believe is, I mean, especially nowadays, is really breaking apart.
Oh.
And it's because of this dynamic. And what's crazy is most women, if you are, and I'm, you know, if you are a woman and your core is feminine, and doesn't mean that you don't have masculine tendencies. I have masculine tendencies. I have masculine traits. We all have a mixture of them. Yep. It's finding how to harness them and how to let go of them. I essentially, and I think I've told you this before, Chuck, I, in my 20s, essentially became a man because I was working with all men. I was working in the hospitals and ORs, and I was working with doctors and all of this. And I had to flex my muscle, what I thought I had to flex my own muscles. And so I basically became a man. And then I would attract relationships of these men that wouldn't stand up for, like, they wouldn't stand up to me. They would just, they were weak, and they would people please, and they would do all these things. And I had to go through those many cycles of heartbreak and understand, okay, who am I being in this relationship? What do I actually desire? Most women that are frustrated in relationships or in marriages right now, they're like, I just wish my man would stand up. Let me tell you, do one thing: appreciate him, respect him, let him provide for you.
Yes.
And allow yourself to receive his love.
Ask him to do things.
Yeah.
He loves it. Trust me. As a dude who does a lot, I've got a honey-do list like you can't believe. Yes. Here's the best part. But this is, and I'm going to remind everyone that this is biochemical. Yeah. Okay. So in Hollywood, much to your point, in reality television, we have seen families who have been called, you know, the royalty of California or Hollywood. And it's like, okay, show me a masculine man in any of those relationships. Every man has been beat down. Every man has been marginalized. Every man is like subservient. And I go, now one of them actually married a man who lives up to his standard, who is a man and what do they mean? They tell him what to do? No, they collaborate. They're a provider. They love being a family man. And it's like, okay, I mean, one of them ended up reverting and changing their sex because of and they go, oh, they were like that before. And I go, again, when we tolerate, what ends up happening is that you'll start to see a direct proportion. So for women who have become emasculated or masculinized, and for men who become emasculated, it's interesting because you'll start to see a lowering, especially in the men. Their testosterone levels drop, their estrogen and progesterone goes up.
Yep.
That's why when we start hearing about people, they go, oh, they have a dad bod. And I go, oh, interesting. Well, they go, oh, built for comfort, not speed. And I go, oh, okay, that's interesting. And I go, and they're a really nice guy, and they make great cookies, and they're great with arts and crafts. I said, I have no problem with channeling your feminine energy and your creativity as an artist, as someone who loves to cook, as someone who loves to sing and dance, as someone who loves to chop wood and fire guns and ride motorcycles and drive fast and experience, throwmonger things as well. I said, there's a balance that's actually an imbalance. It's actually harmony. Mm-hmm. This is one of the areas, though, where they are in direct proportion to one another, because the more masculinity a woman brings on, the more her testosterone levels go up and her estrogen and progesterone fall down. That's why fertilization has become such a challenge for so many people. That it's one of the reasons why we're hormone replacement therapy. And they're like going, oh, why? Because they're not filling back up. They're not living at this level of congruity.
Yeah.
And there's a level of guilt that's affiliated with this, but it goes deeper too, Katie. And that's where, to your point, having a consciousness around this, I have zero challenge with expectation. What I remind people of, though, is that going back to this, your purpose and your why is primary. If you're starting with outcomes and goals first and then trying to back into a purpose and why and then take mammoth action, you're always going to be stuck with this gap. You're always going to be stuck. There's a missing component. So just start with your purpose and why. If it's happiness, prosperity, health, vitality, connectivity, value, whatever the case might be, I go, great, pick a direction. Any direction that'll allow you to feel this way most often. Then develop your identity. Who do you remember you are and who do you need to let go of? Then you come up with outcomes and goals, because now it's a full body experience, and it's not just about you. It's not about me. It's about we.
Yeah.
And then you take mammoth action, and it's a full body experience, and no one can steal this from you. This is your heart, your core, your identity. This is who you are. This is your human design. And when we honor self and forgive self, that's when we find ultimate freedom.
Amen. Amen. And I think it's really coming back to who you are, because again, it's like we've had so much conditioning, whether our environment and our parents, and all parents are amateurs, right? Oh. Like they're all amateurs. And so finding the forgiveness that you need and that you've desired or whatever, it unleashes a new sense of self and of freedom that it will empower you and fuel you to move forward. And I think that's literally the gift that I found within human design and working with my clients, is because it's, again, they're seeing we're all different, right? We're all different. And we're not meant to be the same. And it's through those differences that we actually get to grow and cultivate even deeper connection and intimacy. And so as we were speaking about the masculine and feminine, like that we're living in a day today where men have allowed themselves to be incredibly emasculated by this like feminine uproar. And the one thing that women want more than anything, and they don't realize it because they're not conscious to it, is to allow yourself just to be receptive, get back into the flow, get back into your body. That's the biggest key for a woman that is feeling in her masculine. Get back in your body, wash your hands, draw yourself a bath, do something that's going to dance, yoga, flow, that gets you back into your flow.
Feminine flow is so important. And I'll remind people, the reason why we're willing to tolerate this perceived control is fear.
Yeah.
We don't want the exposure of being hurt. We don't want to go through that again. It's like the definition of insanity. And they're trying to figure out, how do we go to the next level? Kate, we have a couple minutes before we wrap up here. And so I want to remind folks, I mean, and again, thank you for your insights, your distinctions. And this we could go on forever. I mean,
Hours.
and we will definitely have you back when your schedule allows. I was going to ask, how do people get a hold of you, Katie? Because I know we have you at Katie, Katie, at high energy KC, or excuse me, energy, yes, KC.com.
Yes.
And so that's
my website. Yeah, that's my website. You can contact me there. You can find me on Instagram at I am Katie Carlson, Facebook, Katie Carlson. There's actually quite a few Katie Carlsons on Facebook. But if you find my website at highenergykc.com, you'll be able to find my socials, and you can follow me on socials. I post a lot of different content around the energetics of how to create a life that you design, right? That you deserve, that is meant for you. I love helping people collapse time in their business. Again, leveraging human design, and it's definitely been a gift. And the more that we allow ourselves to grow, the more, I believe, the more fulfilled we have, like the more fulfillment we'll have in our life, and we'll attract the opportunities and the people. So
I couldn't agree more. At the end of the day, we get to. None of this is a have to. The gift is that we wake up, our feet hit the ground, we take a breath, and we get to engage with other beautiful human beings and elevate our energy and our frequency and attract and manifest more into our world when we're living in that space and that grace. And you are a blessing, my friend. I so appreciate you. Thank you for this time and for joining us. And I'm just going to remind all of our listeners that, you can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check us out for all the news and all the programming. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thank you so much, Katie.
Thank you.